Hey everybody, it's DJ. I hope everyone's staying safe and doing well. Unfortunately, there's like a lot of snow going on out there, as you can see. It looks like it fell up to 4 to 6 inches around the Denver area. Um, since that's going on and I'm out of work, I decide I want to share with you guys my top 10 favorite epic films. Now, besides the length and time, that's usually what everyone thinks about epic films, the length and the time. There's more than that. There's drama, there's romance, there's comedy, there's everything that the substance and the style of these films could just put a lot into. And everything that the characters have been put up with, and the music, the cast, the filmmakers, every single thing that has been written or have been put into in every development, I mean? It's like these are the epic films that are just put in together to make something very important, so big and powerful. And these are the 10 films that I picked that just actually move me. Like, they really get me in the deepest core of passion. Like every time I just watch any scene of these films, anytime, I just like to hold my breath and just sit there still looking and see what was with the detail of the films. So with that said, on the shorthand, if you like any of these films, that's okay. And if those of you who don't, that's okay with me too, because I'm not going to argue about all these anything that you would comment to me about below. And just keep in mind, everyone likes things for different reasons. So like and subscribe if you agree with that. So anyway, so here we go. This once again is BJDJ's top 10 favorite epic films. Number 10, Warhorse. Now, I had to put that as the only Steven Spielberg movie that is just considered epic. All the other Steven Spielberg movies are just like adventurous and thrilling and heartwarming, like E.T. and Indiana Jones, Close Encounters. And even the only two that are thrilling to me are Schindler's List and Jaws. But this one, to me, is the most epic, and that's why I had to put that on the list to me. So for those of you who have never heard about it, it's like a war. It starts out in World War One, when there was like the owner of the horse had to go to the army to just fight for his country, and despite the fact that the horse has been raised on the farm from his owner, he sets out for his adventure to find him. And it's because he's been thinking a lot about the friendship that he's had since he grew up. And all throughout the event, you can see everything that has been put with World War One and the battle against Germany and England, and everything that this horse had to just trot his way all the way along Europe. It's just an amazing journey, and I love this scene at the end. It's my favorite, when both the horse and the boy were wounded, but after some soldiers took his horse just past him, he noticed he heard the horseshoes, and so he called out for him, but the horse responded immediately, and he wanted to feel him, he wanted to see him, and the way they just embraced each other, that just captivates me. Oh my God, I just feel like I wanted to cry again if I ever see that scene again. It's just like, Oh man, I know I feel like I'm getting sidetracked about this one. I don't know if I have a lot to explain about, but it's the only Steven Spielberg film that I could ever think of that is just an epic or considered epic. But I mean, if you agree with that, that's okay, and if you disagree, that's okay too. Like I said before, and I don't want to go blah 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 about this one. So like I don't want to go like make too much nonsense about this. So uh, next one. Number 9, Dr. Zhivago. And just so you know, half of the films that I have on this list are like from the classic movie era rather. And they have overtures, intermissions, and entr'actes. They're like epic dramas or epic comedies, whatever you think of, that have all that. And that's the thing that has to do with epic films that um, you can't deny, just like what an epic film was like before. So anyway, Dr. Zhivago. It was released in 1965, starring Omar Sharif, and it was based out of the book by Boris Pasternak. It follows a Russian medical doctor named, of course, Dr. Yuri Zhivago, and he lives his life throughout most of the Bolshevik Revolution and in the beginning of World War II when Joseph Stalin was about to head under command. But it's not just like when he was just about to be under orders, like curing people with his medical equipment, and like mostly curing the soldiers. And even like there were Bolshevik troops that had to be taken under shelter in his old home. But it's not just the plot, it's like the cast. You take Omar Sharif, Julie Christie, and Alec Guinness, and many of the others. They were so terrific. And the music, oh, the music is so god amazing. Like golly, it's amazing. I can't interpret it right, but it's just beautifully done. I know that, but however, even though when I think of the music for Dr. Zhivago, I just don't know if it's. I just don't count that as if it's better than the music in the other film that was released the same year, The Sound of Music. When I was raised with The Sound of Music at that time, and even to this day I am so glad that it won Best Picture instead of Dr. Zhivago. I don't know. I'm just being too proud about that, but. Either way, Dr. Zhivago did really good with that too. It's just that it won the same number of Oscars as the other film did. So yeah, for those of you who have never seen, it's alright if you could just check it out, see what happens in it. I hardly could explain anything about it, so. I don't want to get sidetracked anymore about this, so I'm going on to the next one. Number 8. Titanic. Okay, go ahead and throw some crap at me if you want, but like I say, I don't care, alright? It's just I love Titanic for a different reason. But because even though even though I always think about Titanic because of what happened to the actual ship itself and the time and the date of exactly at that time when it was sunk from that iceberg and 15 million people died into the sea. I think the plot that went with the history was really, really good. I mean, there's no reason to just like whitewash the credit that just well received. You know what I mean? It was just well received. Forgive me for talking a little slow. I had a little something in my throat. So, but besides the plot that has to do with Titanic. There's also the plot of the characters, the main characters. You get Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio, and even Gloria Stewart in the later years when you see Rose Dawson in her 80s or 90s. She retells the story of her journey on the Titanic. The way she looks at the images of the ship just really moves herself. Thinking about what it was like back then, it was intense. Like, it was romantic, it was thrilling, it was sad in the end, and it was just... Rose was just an astounding character. So was Jack Dawson. And you could even tell when... from the way you could just see Leonardo DiCaprio drawing this beautiful picture of Rose with this necklace on. Is it called the Heart of the Ocean? Yeah, something like that. It's like this. It looks like a heart, but it's a blue diamond. And but I couldn't risk watching that bastard like fiance. It's just like he's just like I said, he's a bastard, but like he just doesn't fit very well for Rose. She was just about to... I felt like I would just be the same as her because I wouldn't follow tradition the way kind of English people would do. So I wanted to risk the kind of new life that I wanted to have, like Jack would, and you just had to stick with it. You're not living in the home country that you were before. You just want to go on a journey to somewhere else, then you're going to somewhere new. That's what Titanic wants you to just like be. It's like a ship of dreams. That's what Gloria Stewart said in the beginning of her narration. But although it was a dream, it just, of course, it ended with the sinking and the many millions of people dying in the sea, and only one survived. As soon as the ship came down, only one was still on the water floating, and it was Rose, all along. And I love that part. I love the end the best, I think. And as well as this romantic scene, hear me out, when you know how it comes. It's very cliche when you see Leonardo DiCaprio holding Kate Winslet on the tip of the ship, making sure she doesn't like open her eyes yet until he tells her to. When she does like this, she's like, I'm flying. But that just captivates me. But I couldn't put my eyes off it every time I see the scene or the picture from that scene. The end too really got me. Even the last time she looked at, I can't even remember the name of that bastard fiance, excuse me, but I bet you can recognize him if you've ever seen Titanic again. But especially when you see Gloria Stewart want to just forget all that has happened when she threw her necklace back into the ocean with everything else that just fell into the ship, and it all ends with before that Celine Dion song in the credits, there's Gloria Stewart dreaming herself when she was younger, Kate Winslet, but she walks up to Jack Dawson, Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm talking about, and then when they kiss, she dreams that she sees Jack again, embrace him and kiss him so warmly and gently on the lips, and everyone applauds. I mean, it almost made me cry, actually. It made me think about how much she misses seeing Jack for the first time, and just, oh my goodness, Oh man. See what's doing to me? So, yeah, I don't want to get too much about that, but, yeah, other than that, I know how many people were thinking, a lot of people thinking about how lame, how not so enjoyable Titanic was, but, yeah, it's alright with me. Just don't talk to me if you think that way. Um, so yeah, that's why my thoughts are about Titanic. Number 7, The Passion of the Christ. Okay, hear me out on this one. You know, do you think it might be have to do something with Mel Gibson? No, 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 no. Even though Mel Gibson adapted it exactly the way the scriptures, almost exactly the way scriptures have said it before in the original tongues of Latin and Greek and a bit of Hebrew, and even in this wonderful development of just like putting the Aramaic tongue into the script so you could have the actor who played Jesus, you hear him speak Aramaic, and it just got me very much, because even though the English dub was just well done too, it's just that I still love to just hear the original tongues a lot more, because I thought that it's exactly what it was meant to be heard all that time in the Bible. And for those of you who never heard about it, you know what, like you could tell if you've seen the cover of the movie, because it mostly has to talk of not only his passion, but also for it's happens throughout the events of his crucifixion. But the reason I put this also on the list is because the first time I saw this epic film, I can't turn my back away. I couldn't even close my eyes when I just like was watching it all the way through, and I never thought how intense, how heavy, how almost realistic it was, how like how everything was depicted almost exactly the way it was done with the scriptures. And especially if you see all the bloody scenes, even though you say it's visual effects, but they're still bloody. But the parts where even when you see with Jesus being whipped, and Jesus being whipped so many times, and even while he was carrying the cross, and I've been thinking throughout this time about how much I just have my passion toward Christ himself. And not to say this just like rudely or in the ways that you may interpret it against that, but I'm just saying this because even though I love God, I follow Jesus, and that I just don't want to give too much content on my faith, but it's exactly how I felt about it ever since I've been reading the New Testament, and I still have my life to just read the New Testament until I eternally die, for God knows how long it'll be. Yet it still remains so heavy to me, so heavy and so intense, and so and sometimes scary and sad, but you know how that comes. You know how it comes, for those of you who just and those of you who think you would understand anything about Jesus. it depends. So I couldn't even find my tears thinking about the movie yet either. So because they're coming to me. I'm just gonna like wipe that out right now. So it's just this movie that I watch every Good Friday. 2 days before Easter. So it's all I can simply say for passion. Number 6, Forrest Gump. And for anyone who just thinks that whether it's like a comedy or a drama, and the way I would simply put this is like Tom Hanks is both a comedic and a dramatic actor in the same way, and I thought the way, I think it was Robert Zemeckis, I think that's the name of the director or whatever, he really thought about putting the idea, because of his Tom Hanks' talent with comedy and drama, and blend it together. I think that was my perspective on viewing Forrest Gump's acting talent, and especially the way he's athletic, and you see him just run. You're just like, not just physically run, but every time you see him run, thinking about like what happened throughout the events of your life, throughout most of the 20th century. He's been living through these major events. When you see him meet John F. Kennedy, you see him meet John Lennon, you see him meet all these characters that look like they're real, but they're actually, they're visually affected to look like they're a bit animated in some way. But either way, it was just really good. It's still good. And I remember even one, two, or even 3 times I visited a Bubba Gump restaurant. It was really based out of the movie or the book. Forrest Gump wanted to just like make that chain in the movie itself, but then somebody in the market wanted to just make the idea of having Bubba Gump come to life with all those po' boys and the shrimp, and wow, makes me think a lot about that real good. and you get this other amazing actors like Robin Wright, Sally Field, and I forget a lot of actors and actresses too. Like there's this guy who plays Lieutenant Dan, who Lieutenant Dan, who Tom Hanks is just giving some ice cream. He was a good person. He was a good lieutenant, though. Although he should have given respect to Forrest for letting him save his life, though. But on top of that, the way the beginning line was written was really good. The way he is like, my mom always says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And let me tell you something. If you say life is like a box of chocolates, it's true, because if you think that if you're like in a box of chocolates, no, life is full of things that you can either go back or move forward, because you never know what will lie ahead. And that's exactly the same thing as box of chocolates, because each time you take a piece, devour it in your mouth, you never know how much you'll have. You never know how much. That's the same thing as how much your life will have until the time comes when you die. And I think it turned out in the end when Forrest Gump had to realize it, even when Jenny, his only true love, I think, she she was a good mother. She was a good girl. She was a good girlfriend. Although, yeah, she of course had to waste some of her time being like, I don't know what for, but Forrest Gump really just cared a lot about Jenny so much, and even when he was doing so much to protect her, to care for her, and he even knows inside of him, he knows what love is. Like, he was just saying that when Jenny was staying with him in his house. Oh man, it was just like, there's a lot of memories and many scenes actually that are memorable about it, and not to mention the music. You can't forget the music by Alan Silvestri and the songs that are in the soundtrack album. I even have some of the songs that are from Forrest Gump's soundtrack that I have on Apple Music. But, well, it just doesn't matter. But it's really good. They're all good songs. And, excuse me. And I think they fit pretty well with wherever or whatever the plot fits within these songs. And it's like the same thing I feel too when it feels like if you ever see Forrest Gump running for 3 years around the entire country of US, and there's like about 100 people running with him, and it makes me feel like listening to the Doobie Brothers and Bob Seger again. When the Doobie Brothers did "It Keeps You Running," and Bob Seger did "Against the Wind." But man, these are the only two songs I like to listen to actually only time if I feel like I want to run. So yeah, so Forrest Gump overall. Even though it won Best Picture for the year and as well as other Oscars, it did an amazing job of having, and it had good receptions and gotten high praise. Actually, they got a lot of high praises, and especially for Tom Hanks, and the way the story was put into the history of the 20th century. There's a lot of memories that we can't regret, in my opinion. So, yeah, Forrest Gump actually is one of my favorite epic films, is because it makes me think about what success, what happiness, what life is like when you have to move forward. So that's the way I would sum it up for me. So, yeah. So run, Forrest, run! Number 5. How the West Was Won. This is another one of those classic epic films that just really gotten to me very good. And in fact, it's the only Western film that I just love the best. I can't whitewash that, but it has a tremendous amount of cast, a tremendous amount of actors who just did some amazing characters. You get, for example, Henry Fonda, you get John Wayne, you get James Stewart, Debbie Reynolds, and Gregory Peck. Oh, Gregory Peck is such a charming fella. And I know that there's one more that I just like a lot more too. What was it? Carl Malden? Yeah, Carl Malden. He used to be in a lot of a couple of Disney films when he used to act like he was like a priest or something. He was in Pollyanna one time when he used to be a preacher for the local church where Pollyanna visited. Anyway, Carl Malden played Debbie Reynolds and Carol Baker. That's their characters are Eve and Lilith Prescott. They're the main characters of the movie. Carl Malden plays their father named Zebulon. What what I mean to say is that what I should have read is, I'm getting sidetracked about this anyway. So, what it actually talks about is like how it feels like. Actually, talks about how the West was won. Of course, is because it's been like over 5.5 generations ago when the West was called that. Ever since like people moved into America to explore parts of the Pacific region and parts of the Rocky Mountains, but they were there to settle for some beaver and to look at some other parts of nature. Then time moves on when you finally get to see the main characters of the Prescott family, Eve and Lilith. They're the two daughters of the family, and they're both like in their young adulthood, and they started out their journey making their life through the Erie Canal. And about that time when they lost their parents at the Rapids, that was up until James Stewart. He plays a fictitious pioneer named Linus Rawlings, and Eve was the only member of the family that fell in love with Linus, and that's Linus is played by James Stewart. In case you don't know, she actually thought about staying exactly where her parents were buried. Lilith, meanwhile, goes on to just she's been given a contract to have some piece of land that was invested by gold. So she went on, like, exactly what we would expect is an epic wagon ride, a wagon trail that goes all the way from Independence, Missouri to any parts of the West, either to California or to Oregon. Some people like pioneers and cowpokes and other kinds of families just migrated across the West for a purpose. And Lilith had a purpose of finding a new piece of land that she wanted to establish. But Gregory Peck, who was Cleve Van Valen, her future husband, he's been a gambler all his life, but of course she had a dream actually about marrying a rich man. Even though she wanted to live back east, she had her life convinced when she fell in love with this bewildering yet handsome, charming looking, witty and very like caring gambler that just is like sort of a no good, but he really cares about Lilith all the time. And then after the intermission on Truck Day, we move in to see Eve's children. The main one is Zeb Rawlings. Zeb Rawlings, named after Eve's father, and he even has one brother named Jeremiah. He was called on to be in the Civil War for a short period of time. Then after Eve dies and Jeremiah buries the grave for her, he digs her and makes a grave for her. Zeb Rawlings wanted to actually make his journey a lot more in Jeremiah, letting Jeremiah stay back home in his farm, I guess. But as time passes, you see him like as a marshal. You see him as like working for some parts of the some sort of corporate army that we just really don't get much detail about. But not to mention there were like a lot of things that the Western stuff has to do with it. Indian fights, gun fights, outlaws, and wagon trails, epic going like upstream or downstream with rafts along the Erie Canal. And it's like a dream come true if you ever want to revisit your life back in the Wild West. It's one of those amazing things that you wanted to do. It's like I that's the only way I actually feel like I would see, rather than looking at other Western movies that really, I don't know if they give so much detail, although the John Wayne movies do. No doubt about that. John Wayne in the movie, in How the West Was Won, he plays Civil War General William Sherman. And that's just basically it. When I was surprised that he plays that instead of a cowboy. I mean, he's a famous cowboy actor, no doubt about that. I don't know if I have any favorite parts of it. And the songs were good. The music was good. They were all Western folklore songs, but one of them actually was written at the time by Alfred Newman. He was the composer behind the music of the How the West Was Won, and Alfred Newman is like one of the biggest classic movie composers. Even before John Williams, even before many of the others like Hans Zimmer, Alan Silvestri, and you can name anyone. But Alfred Newman started it all. And gosh, he was an amazing and dramatic composer. So I don't know what else I could say about this, but to me, I have a lot of things that I just wanted to put into that were so good about How the West Was Won. How fun, how much fun and adventure, and how much it feels like you want to be in the West. So there's no doubt about that. We have a lot of stuff around the entire United States of America that just still has the history of the Old West to this day. And one of my perspectives is that what I feel about this movie is because I just love to experience the Wild West watching How the West Was Won. And so that's why I live to this day thinking about it. And maybe some of you may have thought that it was based out of the book, but the book actually is based out of the screenplay. Louis L'Amour somehow adapted the screenplay into a book on his own, and I read it actually recently. It was okay. It had a little more detail, but it just doesn't look like it does a thing for me with the movie. But whatever, other than that, How the West Was Won. How the West Was Won. How the West Was Won was just like a very brilliant, epic film that I'll always treasure inside of me. So that's all I can say. Number 4, The Ten Commandments. This is from the mid-1950s. You get Charlton Heston playing the title character as Moses. You get Yul Brynner playing Ramses, his adoptive brother. And you also get Martha... What's her name? Oh, I forget it, but I forgot. But she plays Yocheved. She was the mother of Moses, the actual mother. And Cecil B. DeMille had a tremendous cast. He did this amazing production and direction, just spanning about like 3.5 hours, and I thought that Elmer Bernstein, I think it's a surprise that I didn't know that Elmer Bernstein did the music. It must have been in his younger days. Elmer Bernstein, most of us know this guy. No, we all know them as this horror composer. Mostly for just like all these flicks, but all these horror flicks, you can see or hear Elmer Bernstein in his music. But before that, there was him when he did the Ten Commandments, and man, I never thought just like how tremendous a composer like that would do. And but on top of that, Charlton Heston. So, I mean, let's see. Charlton Heston is still to me one of my favorite actors. You could see the strength inside of him, the way he just makes his expressions from going smiling and just gleaming gleaming as just being so glad like this, and he just has strong expressions in his face, from happy like this to angry and like bitter and like, when you're trying to confront your enemies like that. But it's just done with so much effort. Charlton Heston does a lot of good effort with his acting, even though you see him in Planet of the Apes or Ben-Hur or any other movies like that, in The Agony Ecstasy or whatever it is you think of. Charlton Heston, I can't whitewash any other favorite actor than this guy. He is... punch it is so good. He's so good. But that's what's good about it, is that the way he portrayed Moses was good too and powerful. And Cecil B. DeMille, behind all this, did very well. I'm glad that even you think that if there are some of us that think that Cecil B. DeMille did good too with The Greatest Show on Earth, no, I don't think I'm glad I never see The Greatest Show on Earth ever again. But The Greatest Show on Earth, it's just like I still think of Cecil B. DeMille when I see the Ten Commandments and others, and I thought about, and I'm trying to think about another time when if I ever see his work on Sunset Boulevard. Either way, but it's just he really did a lot of good effort. He brought a lot of research. He brought a lot of everything. He brought a lot of the plot, the writing, and everything that just had to do exactly what the story of Moses was put in the Old Testament. Like in the Passion of the Christ, the Ten Commandments is like one of those films that just makes a lot of great effort, a lot of great power, a lot of great substance and style, exactly the way things would look like if you were living in the Bible. So, as I thought, but the Ten Commandments to me is better because it's got a lot more stuff to remember. It's got a lot more things that are important that has to make a bit of a good perspective than what does to people who also follow, people like who are Christians, who are Jews, who are even those people who just don't like follow them. And I mean, either way, it just doesn't matter. But like, I just love to think about how the Ten Commandments would be combated to what other people would think about it. It's just an amazing film to watch. Well, The Prince of Egypt, on the other hand, I mean, I know how people love to see The Prince of Egypt and think that it's better than that, but it's just only animation and just computer technology that is animated. But even though the cast and the music and the songs, that they were all good, it's just the Ten Commandments to me actually has more impact in. They actually put a lot more things that connect with the story of Moses a lot more. The only thing that the Prince of Egypt does is when he was in his early life, and it only shows Moses in the end carrying the Ten Commandments, but that's it. It just doesn't even show what happens when Moses sees the crowd doing so much of the sins. He throws the tablets down at the statue of the golden calf, and golden cow rather, and man, it was just really good. And I hardly could say anything else about it, but yeah, that's my thoughts for the Ten Commandments. I just love the way it is. Number 3, Gone with the Wind. And this is like one of those, sort of like Titanic. It's just a little more heavy. It's a little heavier, more intense. It's a little bit more tragic, cause more so than the Titanic. Of course, it has to just like had its story put on, like the bloodiest scenes in history, which is the Civil War. You get Clark Gable, you get Vivian Leigh, I think. She plays Scarlett O'Hara. Clark Gable's Rhett Butler, and Maureen O'Hara. Oh man, no wait, Maureen O'Hara? No, I'm sorry, Olivia de Havilland. I can't remember if Maureen O'Hara was in that. Olivia de Havilland. That's what I meant to say. Can you imagine that? She was like the last star that ever lived from the golden age of Hollywood. And she plays Ashley's wife. And that's the other actor I can remember who plays Ashley. Because he's the only person that Scarlett always cares about in her words. And her thoughts just like are self-centered all throughout this time. But what else could she ever think about other than more than Rhett Butler or Ashley or anything that circles around her? Everything that just like is just gone with the wind and just goes away. And just like it's just right until the time if like you feel like you're just until you feel like you're like Rhett Butler, who's just about to like give it up with Scarlett because he knows that she's not worth it anymore after fighting and arguing and just watching their daughter cry. Watching their daughter die after she falls from her pony. When the pony jumps from a little fence, I think. She had this frightening look, thinking about how the same thing happened to her paw, and as I was saying, this is the same thing I would feel if I was like Clark Gable, and I see this self-centered woman. I'd look at her and go, I would just exactly say the same thing. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And if those of you who know that line, if those of you who don't know anything about that line, it's considered to be the number one most important movie quote of all time. And it was ranked number one by AFI, the American Film Institute. Of the top 100 famous movie quotes, this was number one because I think it has to do something with what was happening in the scene. And then it was all, but the only primary focus that Scarlett wanted to put on is she loves, she cares about, she can't have her head off of Tara, which is her home that she was born and raised, grew up, and it's more like a plantation rather than just a home. It's like a cotton plantation. This was at the time when, if you ever feel like you wanted to see what the Civil War is like, it's really heavy. I can guarantee you that. And George, and even the same thing too. If you were in Georgia back in the 1860s, this is what life was like. But honestly, I couldn't even imagine how, even to this day, we have Confederate flags all around. It just bugs me. That's the one thing that bugs me. It's just like, it pisses me off every time you see people carrying Confederate flags and cars and trucks, they just do it for some no reason. I don't want to I don't want to argue about this too much. I'm just very sidetracked. I'm so sorry. But that's the way the Civil War is. There's no way to whitewash everything. That's just history. And but the reason I meant to bring this up, I know that you think that you're just gonna fight with me about this, but I just hate seeing they wanted to make another, how they just don't like to see what the actual truth about America really was back then, and what America is like from the Civil War to now. But Gone with the Wind, on the other hand, is just about as good as the book. Margaret Mitchell, even though she could have been the person behind the screenplay, she let someone else do the idea. And the music was great. The directing was great. The cast was tremendous. And I mean, talk about one of the most credited films that you would ever like to treasure in your life. You could just go ahead and argue about all this. I know it sounds controversial about everything, but it's the way history put it with the movie itself. So for me, that's all I could ever say about it. Yeah, it's Gone with the Wind. Number 2, Ben-Hur. This is the only adaptation I like the best. It's from 1959, starring, of course, Charlton Heston as the title character, Judah Ben-Hur, and you also get Jack Hawkins. He plays captain of the Centurions. I forgot what his name is. Quintus Arius? Or something like that. And Stephen Boyd is Messala, the main enemy of the movie. But you may have I'm sure you may have thought of Ben-Hur because of the chariot race. I admit the chariot race was just so epic. It was just a lot of action put to it. The race was just awesome to watch, but there's more than that. The plot has a lot more than just that, even though it has to do with something that involves about miracles and hope. It talks about miracles, it talks about hope, and it also mostly talks about Ben-Hur struggling himself and surviving himself to return home from Rome in order to just find his mother and sister. It was for his revenge against Messala, and it was about that time when he just found out that they were under leprosy. Man, I was just shocked when I saw Ben-Hur's mother and sister, and it was they're lepers. And the way the music by Miklos Rosa, I think, the music was just put together through everything, in the plot, in the writing, in the cast, and everything that was just done within the music. Oh my God, it's just another one punching moments that are just they're it's like a fist bump. It's just it's because it's just totally awesome to just feel and to remember, to hardly speak about, and especially Esther. Esther is, of course, I don't know if it sounds too cliche about this, but She, of course, is a beautiful character, no doubt about that. And I don't know how I could tell anybody. Oh, yes. The reason I put this higher than the Ten Commandments and higher than the Passion of the Christ, in my point of view, even though he's been acted, it's just that I thought this is what I could see with how I could look through Jesus. You do not see what his face is. You only see the back of him walking. You see him. You only see the back of. You only see his hands helping with Judah when he was carrying a cup of water, letting him gulp the drink. As soon as Judah Ben-Hur calls out, "God help me," when he was like, he fell into the ground. And that was at the time when he was like under slavery and being chained in a ship. I mean, the way Jesus is portrayed, he was just. I thought this was perfect. It's just like, I can hardly say anything about this. It's just, you can't see his face. It's hard to see his face, especially if you think like when you're getting close to finding out what it is. But especially with the way he dresses up in his robe, he never gets himself. He sees him as a clean flesh. It's like about as clean as the Spirit of God himself. But I don't know why I don't know why I'm going on and on about this. But Ben-Hur is, on the other hand, an epic and powerful film, if you ask me. And I just feel like I don't want to keep my eyes off of Ben-Hur if ever I feel like I'm in the mood to see it. I think that it's just the reason why I just had to put Ben-Hur that high is because it's got a lot of blockbusting effort, a lot of amazing effort that the filmmakers had to just work their asses off to just like. By the time it was released, everyone praised it, and it won 11 Oscars, the same as Titanic, and yeah. And I was blown away. Oh man, even the first time I saw it, it was just, I just love to see what action feels like in an epic film like this. So, yeah, that's my expression about this. So. Yeah, that's Ben-Hur. And my number one favorite epic film is The Lord of the Rings Trilogy. And I know that I just been wasting my time just like not getting into much detail and getting too much. I've been putting my head into rubbish. So I'm not gonna go try as much to get in too long. Or I'm not just gonna not gonna go too long about all this. But when I was a boy, 8 to 10 years old, I first watched The Fellowship of the Ring. I couldn't stop looking at the screen. I couldn't stop looking at the TV, and at first, even though I was like. I think I was 8 years old when The Return of the King came out, and I did not remember at that time that I was sleeping throughout the whole thing. And even though I was like, no, I didn't remember watching Return of the King at the theater, and even though my parents took me to see it, and they tried to convince me that as if I did. So, The Fellowship of the Ring, to start with, is a very good way to begin it. It's like, I'll admit, the movies are just about as absolutely perfect as the books. I promise. It's just about as perfectly the way it has to be, as just the way it has to be put in the book from the screenplay, you know what I mean? So, Fellowship of the Ring is just done so well. The Two Towers, it's okay. But I'm sure there's a lot of good moments too. And The Return of the King, oh my goodness. The Return of the King, even though it's just won the same Oscars as Titanic and Ben-Hur, I just really think it's about as good as The Fellowship of the Ring. It's not bad. It's just almost as good as The Fellowship to me. So, but other than that, it's what I thought about The Lord of the Rings. It's not only the best epic film I've ever seen, it's the only 3 films that I love the most. And they're tied with Fantasia. I'll tell you why. Because, first off, The Lord of the Rings has every substance, every style, every sort of attention that can just push you into, with the passion, with hope, with everything that just gets you into the feelings and the emotions. And that's how it's comparable with Fantasia. That's the second thing, is that Fantasia is the only epic Disney film that I really wanted to put that on my list, but I couldn't find it. I wanted to count that as an epic Disney animated film, but although it just mainly talks of animation and music blended together, I just still think that it just has a good depth of sense and depth of feeling. It's comparable to all this. I mean, Fantasia could do... It's alright if Fantasia could do a little more. It's especially when they did Night on Bald Mountain and Ave Maria, these segments together. And, they could just do a little bit of something that just about as good as the Lord of the Rings movies. But this is why I just meant to... I'm not aiming it right. This is what all think about the Lord of the Rings right here. And Peter Jackson, even though he could be overrated, but he is a tremendous director. He had a great passion for the books. And I know that inside his mind, he wanted to just make the Lord of the Rings a little bit different, sending the story back and forth in a different time, or with the lines at a different time, and the way characters see or hear or do things in a different time rather than in a book. But the performances of the cast were awesome. You get Elijah Wood as Frodo Baggins, Ian McKellen, Gandalf, Andy Serkis as Gollum. I love to portray this guy. Every time I just had to say these kinds of Lazarus process, every time, you get to see this goddamn character come to life. But still, Liv Tyler, Arwen, Hugo Weaving, Hugo Weaving as Elrond, Orlando Bloom. What the heck? I'm sorry if you think that Orlando Bloom as Legolas is just not too much of a good character, but still, the way he shoots his arrows and over, I know it sounds like as much as of a video game, but no, it's just meant to be for the film. It's just, he shoots every arrow he shoots every arrow in a very awesome way. He's got a lot of great tricks. He makes a lot of great acrobatic tricks. That's Orlando Bloom for you. And I remember doing a countdown about the top 10 Middle-earth monsters. There were some parts that didn't involve those monsters, and they kind of scared the heck out of me, including the Watcher in the water. You see him, that's my number one scariest part. You see the Watcher in the water grabbing Frodo. It looks like this giant octopus or something like that. And he grabs Frodo with his tentacle. It was almost close to chew him up. But then, of course, Aragorn and the others come up to just like attack him before the Watcher in the water blocks himself from the entrance to Moria. And oh man, I've been forgetting one other major character, Aragorn. Oh man, Aragorn, and even Samwise Gamgee. Aragorn and Sam are two really good characters. Even though Frodo's supposed to be the main character, I know that it was supposed to be his destiny to go over to destroy the ring and save the world, but he can't do that alone without Sam and without Aragorn, because they counted on Frodo with hope and with the kind of friendship, the fellowship that they had together. And especially like when Aragorn had an amazing act. He had an amazing act. I think he was a perfect leader. If you feel like you want to become a king, become the kind of person you were born to be, that's the kind of person I think that's just how it feels for you. When you're Aragorn, you have to find out the destiny that you were born to be. And you can't let that down. Even because you don't want to end up like a ranger for the rest of your life. So you put that aside. Think about how important it is to you. So other than that, it's even from the perspectives of J.R.R. Tolkien, you get the writings of the Elvish languages and the runes. I think they're called the ancient runes that were used from Middle Earth. And somehow J.R.R. Tolkien, I guess, meant to just put those runes together to make a different language, just like Elvish and Dwarfish, and sometimes in the Black Tongue that comes from Mordor. And don't get me wrong, the villains are great. Sauron, the Ringwraiths, the Orcs, Gollum, and many others, and of course the Ring of Power. It's a very tempting gift, although it feels like it just like wants to drive you away from the reality. It's like power. It's like that's what like sometimes power could be. Is like sometimes power can take you away, even though the greatest gift you have in your life can be powerful, but sometimes it could be taken away. Like the Ring of Power could do to you. So that's, I don't know if there's like everything else that just had to be put together. Other than that, Howard Shore was a beautifully amazing and astounding, and every positive word I can give to Howard Shore, who composed the music for these movies, and even in The Hobbit, who followed up as prequels. Howard Shore did so well, just putting all the rhythm, the harmony, the melody of the instruments, the way it was structured through every parts of the plot and the characters, everything that the music has done with everything. The orchestra really just was performed throughout most of the story, and Howard Shore is the only composer I figure in all of the films I've ever seen. I just give high credit to. And he's a beautiful composer. He's a beautiful vision. He's a beautiful, he has a beautiful vision. He has this beautiful talent. And much as the others, I'm sure they were great friends for everyone who did Lord of the Rings together for 3 or 3.5 years. They were wonderful friends, and I feel like, I know how it feels like that they miss each other until that Zoom meeting came on last year or two, and it was just a joy to see the Lord of the Rings all the time. And I still am reading the book right now. I have to reread it for a reason, and I can't stop having my heart, I can't stop having my soul, my mind, and my strength put inside it. I mean, it's much so like other films like Gone with the Wind, Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, and all the others that I just had to put through. Lord of the Rings are the only epic films together that just really, they were just really bound together to put everything a movie has to have. And it's got everything, and it's got the climax really well, and it's just got all of it. And I know that I can assure this. I know that there's like some people who had never seen Lord of the Rings. There are some people who don't care about Lord of the Rings, and especially like people who just argue about whatever things they don't understand, others don't understand. Even though there are some others who actually understand. Like, we just go arguing and arguing. That's the whole thing, is because epic films are all about. And I can't think of any other positive or critical review, a critical word other than that. So. Well, I have to wrap all this up right now, so if those of you who agree with me, please let me know. And for those of you who don't, it doesn't matter. It just, I just had to wrap all this up now. So feel free to make your comments about how you feel about these movies, and I'm just dying to know what your opinions are all about. If there are anything that I missed about these movies, just help me out here. And make sure to like and subscribe for BJDJ for more videos. And until next time, I'll see you then.